My name is Clara, and I've always believed that kindness is its own reward. Growing up in a small town where everyone knew each other's business, I learned early to keep my head down, work hard, and treat people with respect. My parents ran a modest bakery, and I spent my childhood kneading dough, sweeping flour off the counters, and smiling at customers even when my feet ached. It wasn't glamorous, but it was honest. I loved the way my mom's laughter filled the shop and how my dad's hands, rough from years of labor, could shape a loaf into something beautiful. They taught me that life isn't about what you have, it's about what you give. When I was 25, I moved to the city to chase a dream. Not a big one, mind you, just a steady job in marketing, something that would let me use my creativity without starving. I landed a position at Brightwave, a mid-sized advertising agency with a reputation for bold campaigns and a tight-knit team. At least, that's what the job listing promised. I was thrilled, nervous, but ready to prove myself. I didn't expect the world to hand me anything. I just wanted a fair shot. The office was a sleek, open-plan space with glass walls and neon accents, the kind of place that screamed, "We're going places." My first day, I wore my best blazer, second-hand, but it fit like a glove and carried a notebook to jot down every detail. My boss, Vanessa, was a polished woman in her late 30s with a smile that never reached her eyes. She introduced me to the team, a group of 20-somethings who seemed friendly enough, though their laughter felt rehearsed. Among them was Rachel, the team's star copywriter. She had a sharp wit, a designer handbag, and a way of commanding attention without trying. I admired her confidence, even if it made me feel small. At first, I thought I'd found my place. I worked late, double-checked my pitches, and brought coffee for the team when deadlines loomed. I wasn't trying to be a saint, just a good colleague. But it didn't take long to notice the whispers. Rachel would glance at my desk, then lean over to murmur something to another coworker, their giggles cutting through the hum of the office. My ideas, carefully crafted and presented in meetings, were often ignored, only to reappear later as Rachel's brilliant suggestions. When I stayed late to finish a campaign, she'd take credit for the final touches. "Oh, Clara helped with the groundwork," she'd say, waving a manicured hand, as if my hours of work were a footnote. I tried to shrug it off. I told myself it was just office politics, that I was the new kid, and I needed to earn my stripes. But the slights piled up. Rachel would forget to include me in team lunches, leaving me to eat my sandwich alone at my desk. She'd critique my work in front of everyone, her tone dripping with condescension, pointing out typos I hadn't made or flaws that didn't exist. Once she spilled coffee on my laptop during a meeting, laughed it off as an accident, and never apologized. My screen flickered for weeks, but I couldn't afford a new one. Vanessa, who I'd hoped would notice my effort, seemed to eat it up. "Rachel's a natural leader," she'd say, while I was left to clean up the mess, literally and figuratively. The worst part wasn't the big moments. It was the slow, grinding erosion of my confidence. I started second-guessing every email, every word I spoke. I'd lie awake at night replaying Rachel's smirks, wondering what I'd done to earn her disdain. Was I too quiet, too eager? Did my thrift store clothes scream outsider? I called my mom one night, my voice shaking as I told her how hard it was to fit in. "Clara, honey," she said, "you don't need their approval, just keep doing your best. They'll see who you are," but they didn't. Months passed, and the frustration grew like a knot in my chest. Rachel's sabotage became bolder. During a pitch for a major client, a national jewelry brand, I spent weeks crafting a campaign centered on authenticity, drawing from my parents' bakery to evoke handmade quality. I poured my heart into it, staying up until 3 a.m. to perfect the visuals. The day of the presentation, Rachel volunteered to present our idea. I didn't think much of it, teamwork, right? But when she stood up, she delivered my concept word for word, never mentioning my name. The client loved it. Vanessa clapped Rachel on the back, and the team cheered. I sat there, my face burning, my hands clenched under the table. When I tried to speak up afterward, Rachel cut me off with a laugh. "Oh, Clara, you're so sweet to think you inspired this. I just took it to the next level." That night, I cried in my tiny apartment, the city lights mocking me through the window. I'd moved here to build something, to prove I could make it on my own, and instead, I was invisible. Worse, I was being erased. I thought about quitting, but the thought of crawling back home, admitting defeat, was unbearable. My parents had sacrificed too much for me to give up. So I stayed, swallowing the anger, the humiliation, day after day. The breaking point came 6 months in. Brightwave was competing for a massive contract with a tech startup, a deal that could elevate the agency to new heights. Vanessa assigned Rachel and me to lead the pitch together, a chance to prove ourselves. I was determined to shine, to show what I could do. I spent weeks researching the client, sketching ideas, and building a campaign around their mission of connecting communities through technology. Rachel, meanwhile, barely showed up to our meetings, claiming she was brainstorming or networking. When she did contribute, it was to nitpick my work or suggest flashy, shallow ideas that didn't fit the client's vision. The night before the pitch, I stayed late to finalize the deck. Rachel had promised to review it, but she texted at 11 p.m. "Something came up, you've got this." Exhausted, I polished every slide, triple-checked the data, and emailed it to her for feedback. No response. The next morning, I arrived early, nervous but proud of what I'd created. Rachel breezed in minutes before the meeting, her heels clicking, her smile smug. She'd made changes to the deck overnight without telling me. My carefully crafted slides were gone, replaced with a garish, over-the-top design that screamed her style. Worse, she'd removed my name from the title slide, listing only herself as the lead. The client presentation was a disaster. The startup CEO, a no-nonsense woman named Priya, frowned through Rachel's pitch, clearly unimpressed by the shallow buzzwords and flashy graphics. "This doesn't align with our values," Priya said, her voice sharp. "We wanted connection, not a sales pitch." Rachel stammered, throwing me a desperate glance, but I was too stunned to speak. Vanessa's face was a mask of disappointment. After the meeting, she pulled me aside. "Clara, I expected more from you. You let Rachel carry the weight, and it showed." I felt the world tilt. But I started, but Vanessa was already walking away. Rachel, meanwhile, was at her desk, laughing with a coworker as if nothing had happened. That's when it hit me. She didn't just want to win. She wanted me to lose. She thrived on my failure, feeding off my effort while burying me in her shadow. The anger I'd bottled up for months boiled over, but I didn't scream or cry. Instead, a cold, sharp clarity settled in. I wasn't going to let her win. Not anymore. I started small, watching her patterns. Rachel was lazy when she thought no one was looking. She'd leave early, delegate her work, and rely on others to clean up her messes. I began documenting everything, every stolen idea, every accident, every time she took credit for my work. I saved emails, took screenshots of my contributions, and kept a log of her lies. I wasn't sure what I'd do with it, but I needed proof that I wasn't invisible. Then came the annual company retreat, a weekend at a lakeside resort where the team would bond and pitch ideas for the next quarter. It was a big deal. Senior execs from the parent company would be there, and a standout idea could mean a promotion. I saw my chance. For weeks, I worked on a campaign for a local nonprofit, a literacy program that needed a rebrand. It was personal to me. My mom had taught me to read before I started school, and I knew how books could change lives. I crafted a heartfelt pitch, weaving in stories of real people the program had helped, paired with a sleek, modern design that stayed true to their mission. Rachel predictably wanted in. "Let us collab," she said, her smile all teeth. I agreed, but this time I was ready. I fed her just enough to keep her engaged, rough drafts, vague concepts, but kept the core of my idea locked away. I worked late at home, perfecting the pitch, and saved every version on a private drive. When Rachel asked to see the final deck, I sent her a watered-down version, claiming it was a work in progress. She didn't bother to read it closely, too busy schmoozing with the execs. The night of the retreat's big presentation, the team gathered in a wood-paneled conference room, the lake shimmering outside. Rachel insisted on presenting our idea, and I let her. She stood up, confident as ever, and launched into the pitch I'd sent her, the weak, half-baked version. The execs' faces went from curious to bored. One yawned. Rachel faltered, her usual charm failing as she realized the slides didn't have the depth she'd expected. When she tried to ad-lib, she stumbled, mixing up stats and contradicting herself. Then it was my turn. I stood, my heart pounding but my voice steady. "I'd like to share an alternative approach," I said, pulling up my real deck. The room shifted, all eyes on me. I walked them through my campaign, the stories, the data, the vision. I spoke about my parents, about the bakery, about how small acts of care can change lives. The execs leaned forward, nodding. Priya, the CEO from the tech startup, was there as a guest judge. She smiled, recognizing the authenticity she'd wanted before. When I finished, the room was silent for a moment, then erupted in applause. Rachel's face was a mask of shock, her mouth open like a fish out of water. Vanessa looked at me like she was seeing me for the first time. After the presentations, Priya approached me. "That was exceptional, Clara," she said. "I want you to lead our next campaign." It wasn't just a compliment, it was a contract. The nonprofit loved my pitch, and Brightwave landed the account with me as the lead. Rachel's downfall came swiftly. My documentation, carefully compiled, made its way to Vanessa's desk, anonymously, of course. Emails showing Rachel's edits to my work, screenshots of her taking credit, timestamps proving I'd done the heavy lifting. Vanessa wasn't stupid. She saw the pattern. Rachel was called into a closed-door meeting, and when she emerged, her face was pale. She was demoted to a junior role, her leadership stripped away. The team stopped laughing at her jokes. She left the company a month later, her designer handbag looking a little shabbier. I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. I was too busy leading the nonprofit campaign, working with a team that respected me, building something real. The knot in my chest was gone, replaced by a quiet pride. I called my mom that night, and we laughed like we used to in the bakery, the sound warm and full. I'd fought for my place, and I'd won, not by tearing someone else down, but by refusing to let them bury me. The revenge wasn't loud or cruel. It was better. It was the look on Rachel's face when she realized she'd underestimated me. It was the exec's applause, the contract in my name, the knowledge that I'd turned my anger into something unstoppable. And it was sweet.